There's a new Looney Tunes game? What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on? Yes, this is a new Looney Tunes game, which is a surprise.
What's up, Doug?
I really didn't think we'd see anything like this again.
Meep, meep.
This harkens back to the days of Looney Tunes Racing and Space Race,
Back off!
with a Looney Tunes ensemble competing against each other in the Ultimate Cup for the Golden Anvil.
Which sport will it be?
The cup is comprised of a random selection of 4 sports across various familiar locations.
Taz, dunk on you!
Now that's what I call a thrilling play!
There's basketball, soccer, tennis, and golf.
That's pause!
Nice one, eh?
The question is, has this wacky world won me over, or is it just a load of balls? Stay tuned to find out.
Sure, I'll play. Me and my generous impulses.
First, let's talk about the characters. You can choose from Bugs Bunny, Wile E. Coyote, Porky Pig, Sylvester the Cat, Roadrunner, Lola Bunny, the Tasmanian Devil, Elmer Fudd, and Daffy Duck. And if you have the digital deluxe edition of the game, you also have Yosemite Sam, who's an online exclusive.
Here I am!
I'm actually kind of disappointed that there's no way to purchase him as an add-on, particularly as I would have liked the physical copy of the game, and he's really not worth forking out on the same game twice. Sorry, Sam.
That weren't no good.
What highfalutin galoot thought this was a good idea? There are no more characters to unlock, and while this might sound disappointing, this seriously is not to the game's detriment.
Yeah, that's one for me.
The unique animations for each character are surprisingly good.
Now that's what I call a thrilling play!
And credit where it's due, the voice acting in this game is tremendous. They are so close to Mel Blanc,
Bon voyage!
or Arthur Q. Bryan in the case of Elmer Fudd.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting trophies.
I'm surprised I'm saying this, but Eric Bowser is quite possibly my favourite voice for Bugs and Daffy since Mel Blanc himself.
Mama would be so proud of me.
And honestly, that's a huge compliment, especially considering my fondness for Joe Alaskey's voice performances.
All in a day's work, ma'am.
I'd say the only voice Bowser does that doesn't quite sit right with me is Porky Pig.
What's going on here?
Which is kind of funny since he's the voice of Porky in the new movie The Day the Earth Blew Up.
Oh, is that so?
Don't get me wrong, I don't think the voice is terrible by any means, but Bob Bergen does a better Porky in my opinion.
That's all.
He has the stutter to a T, and he knows it.
The boy sat in the chair next to the desk. And nobody can do that, and that's when I have job security.
That clip didn't age well. Once again, Wile E is completely silent in this game. They always seem to favour his muted persona from the Roadrunner shorts, rather than his speaking appearances.
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
Although strangely they do make reference to this.
So much for the super genius.
The only other playable character who doesn't speak is Roadrunner, who uses archived vocals of Paul Julian's Meep Meep from the classic shorts.
Meep, meep.
This is a nice touch, although it's kind of odd to me that Roadrunner is playable.
3 points!
It's strange seeing him perform anthropomorphic activities. Granted, he is very occasionally seen doing such things in the cartoons. I also thought it strange that Roadrunner takes part in soccer and basketball considering his speed, but fortunately it seems he's been told to keep pace.
Will only be the best by a tiny bit.
It's a good thing there are no races in this game, or he'd certainly give the others a run for their money. Speaking of which, every character has their own personal attributes that either help or hinder their gameplay, although the differences seem very slight. It really makes me wonder why they bothered.
Oh, I'm not a hero. I'm a pig.
On the character selection screen, these indicators convey their speed, strength, and intelligence. Although he might be restraining himself, Roadrunner is of course the speediest, while Taz seems to be the strongest, along with Yosemite Sam.
It sure is getting powerful warm in here.
Clearly he doesn't call himself the roughest, toughest, He-Man stuffest hombre for nothing. In the main menu there are several options. The Ultimate Cup is a series of randomly selected events, selected by spinning this wheel. Although if you choose to play the standard 4 games per cup, you'll be subjected to 1 game of each sport anyway, so it's never really much of a surprise.
Let's jump into basketball.
In fact, the entire wheel spinning cutscene is actually pretty redundant, considering the loading screen beforehand always depicts the next sport you'll be playing anyway. For example, you'll see a loading screen for tennis, followed by a cutscene of the wheel unexpectedly landing on tennis. Who knew? Oh, well, I for one never saw that coming. There's also sports mode, which simply allows you to play games of choice for fun.
The ball drops for a birdie.
See that?
And there are also challenges that set you specific tasks to complete in each sport. As you play the Ultimate Cup and the challenges, you unlock new locations in which to play the games.
Here it comes!
Furthermore, completing the challenges also unlocks special new skins for your club's balls and rackets, which is cool, even though you can't really see them too well from this far away. I also like that the animations are different depending on the skins. For example, the ACME Club Boom makes the hole trigger a small explosion. Cool stuff. Now I want to talk about the individual sports and their challenges, and we'll start the ball rolling with basketball. This is perhaps my favourite of the sports, as the controls are the most satisfying in my opinion. First of all, you need to press a corresponding button at just the right time to gain possession of the ball.
You look like 2 miles of bad road. And you play that way too.
You can switch to your teammate manually by pressing triangle, but the game automatically switches characters depending on who has the ball.
Hey, I got it!
You can pass the ball by facing your teammate and pressing X, or perform a high pass by pressing triangle. In order to dunk, you need to make your way to this area of the court and press the square button. Alternatively, you can score a 3-pointer by standing behind the 3-point line. You can do this by briefly holding the square button. Releasing it when the exclamation point appears will make the character shoot and score 3 points. You're also able to perform an alley-oop by pressing R1 to call your teammate over to the basket. As soon as they're in the shoot corner, if you high pass the ball to them, they will automatically dunk the ball.
Got it!
Throughout the game, ACME crates will drop onto the court.
This will come in handy.
And if you run through them, you obtain power-ups such as rocket-powered sneakers,
Here we go!
falling anvils,
Ow!
and cream pies to stun your opponents.
Hey!
Positively loony.
Pie,
If the other team has the ball, you can also shove them to take the ball from them. However, this sometimes didn't work for me. It seemed especially problematic when the opposing team was performing an alley-oop. Based on their movements, I could usually tell when they were about to perform this move, and unless I used a power-up, I could never stop them. The shove just didn't do anything. Ugh, show-offs. Oh, come on! Stop gloating and get on with it! We all know the score! Speaking of which, one thing I appreciate about this game is that it also takes individual ability into account. Even if your team loses, you can still score more points by playing well. You can also perform a block move by jumping in front of your opponents at the right time to hit the ball away. Performing successful blocks, dunks, shoves, and 3-pointers will fill this meter.
Better watch out!
As soon as it's full, you can then perform an unblockable move. And not only that, but as soon as the meter is full, if you make your way over to the free throw circle and press square, you'll perform a super shot.
Ain't I, you stinker?
Why is Granny holding a sign for Porky? Porky isn't even in this game. I think she's a bit confused. What a basket case, am I right? Oh, no, of course not. This is the first location, Porky's barn, while Seago and Sam's pirate ship can be unlocked by playing the Ultimate Cup.
Bet you wasn't expecting a hat trick, was ya?
Simply incredible!
The remaining court is Granny's house, which can only be unlocked after completing all of the basketball challenges. As you complete challenges, you earn points to unlock more challenges, and there are 20 in total. These include scoring from marked areas on the court, and hitting your opponents with power-ups a set number of times in addition to winning the quarter.
Ooh, pretty.
One of the toughest challenges requires you to perform 4 super shots and win the match. To do this, you need to constantly fill your meter, which takes a while. But the absolute worst challenge is all about blocking. This was a pain because of the CPU characters. The idea is to block your opponent's ball a total of 8 times in the time limit, which sounds feasible, but it's actually a headache. To begin with, I would much rather be playing this on my own than have a CPU partner, as they often try to grab the ball, which is really unhelpful since you obviously want the other team to have the ball.
What an amazing pass!
I tried to stop this happening by changing characters, but both Daffy and Roadrunner did this during the game. Oh, talk about a couple of bird brains. I also found it rather difficult trying to get the other team to take the ball from me. Look, I'm literally handing you the ball. Just take it. Guys, I can't do anything unless you take it. The ball is quite literally in your court.
So close, so close.
If the opposing team had been more formidable and given me more opportunities to block them, this challenge would have been a breeze. But as it was incredibly frustrating.
I won!
And far more difficult than the final challenge, which I'll call the boss.
Here he is, folks. The ACME Basketball Duke of Dunk, Sylvester!
Yes, once you've completed the previous 19 challenges, you're ready to face Sylvester.
Suffering bucket hat.
And he's quite the formidable opponent. He really puts you through the hoops. Although personally, I think they missed an opportunity to make Lola Bunny the basketball boss. You know, considering basketball is her forte.
The girl's got some skills.
Instead, you need to play as her in this challenge, which was an interesting choice.
You think you're dizzy now.
Now that's what I call a thrilling play!
Not only that, but I also find it interesting that there are so few references to Space Jam in this game.
I'd like to try out for the team. My name is Lola Bunny.
The basketball games are really fun for the most part. Why they never released a similar basketball game to coincide with Space Jam: A New Legacy is a mystery to me.
Thought I gave the others the run for their money, but I'm the one who ended up broke.
Anyway, with all challenges completed, Granny's house is ours. Guess you'll have to find somewhere else to live. Well, go on then. Out with the old. Piss off. Anyway, I thought I'd kickstart this next part of the video by talking about soccer. This is the most challenging sport in my opinion, and took me the longest to grow accustomed to.
You ever play sports, Ralph?
Nah, not really the athletic type, Sam.
The first pitch is Foghorn's Farm, and playing the Ultimate Cup unlocks Dr. Frankenbean's castle. I like that they pay homage to both hair-raising hair and water every hair here. With gossamer-shaped holes in the walls referencing the former, and a giant robot in the background referencing the latter.
My mechanical masterpiece.
The name of the pitch is also a reference to Water Every Hair, as Frankenbeans is the official name of the Boris Karloff-inspired evil scientist in this cartoon.
If you only had a living brain.
Although he didn't receive this name until the 2007 video game Acme Arsenal. I've never been a big fan of this name, or indeed this game, but I appreciate the continuity. Anyway, there are 3 team members on each team.
I got this.
As with basketball, you immediately switch to whichever teammate has the ball.
Awesome, right?
Or you can change character by pressing triangle. The biggest issue I have here is that it's a little visually confusing. It can be hard to keep track of who you are playing as, and the camera sometimes cuts you off as it zooms back and forth. I don't think this is a huge problem, but it just adds to the confusion.
Good job!
Pressing square makes you kick the ball, but you can also charge your move by holding square and releasing. Sounds easy, right? Well, here's the kicker. Most often when I tried to do this to score, the goalie proved a huge obstacle to get around.
Oh, almost, but not quite.
And yeah, I know that's kind of the point of a goalie, but scoring a goal alone is surprisingly really tough. Man, give me a sporting chance! The most effective way to score is by making use of your teammates. You can pass the ball by facing a teammate and pressing X, while pressing triangle makes you perform a high pass. If they're near to the goal, you can then immediately press square to perform an airborne kick and score.
The goalie just let that sail through!
Once you've mastered this, the game becomes much easier.
I'd have done it.
And to make things easier still, shooting, passing and moving with the ball fill this meter. If you press L1 and complete the on-screen button prompts, you can perform an unblockable shot.
Here it comes!
That goalie didn't lay a finger on that ball!
Take that, you old witch! The other team are sitting ducks. No offense, Daffy.
And I've never been so humiliated in all my life!
The biggest downside to this game is the CPU characters. When you have the ball, your opponents will follow close behind and try to steal it. You can dodge them by pressing circle, but you need to do this at just the right moment. Seriously, you're given very little leeway. I actually found it easier to just keep passing the ball back and forth to lose the tail. Likewise, you can also do the same to the opposing team.
A brazen play, but it worked!
If the other team has the ball when your meter is full, pressing L1 activates a super steal to automatically take the ball. Although personally this feels like a waste of your meter, especially since you can simply shove them with the square button, or perform a sweep to steal the ball by pressing circle. If your opponent is a little out of reach, holding R1 will let you perform a dash move to temporarily increase your speed. Once you have the ball, it would help a great deal if at least one of your teammates automatically stood near to the goal ready to receive the ball, as it feels as though you're always the one who has to do the legwork.
Let this be a lesson to you, eager young space cadet.
The issue of the goalie is much more problematic in the challenges.
Squeaks past the goalie.
Using the high pass and airborne kick is effective indeed, but there are plenty of challenges that require you to score a goal without the help of any teammates. I swear, Witch Hazel was the bane of my very existence for this entire game. Sometimes you can find a sweet spot in which you have a better chance of scoring. But personally, I found several of the soccer challenges really frustrating. Some challenges require you to avoid opponents and obstacles and score a number of goals. But honestly, the most annoying aspect of the game is Witch Hazel. The constant falling anvils didn't bother me at all. She is by far the biggest obstacle.
Move, witch! Get out the way!
The final pitch to unlock is the Grand Opera Gala, inspired by 1957's Watts Opera Dock.
Fight the wabbit!
So of course, the main boss is Elmer Fudd.
Be very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits.
You might say he has a score to settle.
And once again, I don't think this is the toughest challenge by a long shot.
I got you now, you rascal. Whoops.
Don't get me wrong, Elmer's team plays well, but with your team behind you, Witch Hazel is far easier to get around.
You did it.
Who'd have thought we'd see an opera with a happy ending?
Next we have Golf. This is a nice departure from the other frantic sports.
Ready and on.
The first location is the Whispering Woods, referencing the woods from the Duck Season Wabbit Season trilogy.
Wabbit season. Duck season.
Although personally I prefer the name Wascally Woods as used in Looney Tunes Racing. I feel as though it fits the vibe better. Anyway, first you need to activate your swing by setting the power, indicated by the green line.
Great.
And then you need to set the precision, indicated by the orange line, the idea being to align the markers for the best chance of accuracy.
That's how it's done.
It's a little complicated to explain, but it really isn't hard to get the hang of.
That's paw.
Did it.
The Whispering Woods are fairly straightforward, but playing the Ultimate Cup unlocks the Martian Command Center course, largely inspired by the Bugs Bunny Marvin the Martian cartoon Hairway to the Stars.
Where's the kaboom?
This course ramps up the difficulty pretty sharply. There are many objects around, and the fairway is much smaller than in the Whispering Woods,
Hang on to your socks.
so there's a much greater chance of losing the ball.
I thought I tell a bow off course. I did tee a bow off course.
One thing that makes this location really interesting is the addition of the black hole, which carries your ball to the green.
Which is purple. How confusing.
The reason for this colour change is that it's situated on Planet X, inspired of course by the classic 1953 short Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
Got the drop on you with my disintegrating pistol.
The first time I played this, the black hole kinda confused me as I had no idea what was happening, but it's a pretty cool addition.
That's paw.
Hey, that's what I call a black hole in one.
You suck!
Not only is the objective to score in as few swings as possible, but there are also power-ups you can obtain by hitting floating targets.
Well, looky here.
These usually reward you with power-ups that will help you, such as a magnet to draw your ball towards the hole, or the ability to slow time to slow the gauge.
Nice one.
Sometimes you'll also receive a power-up to sabotage your opponent, either by obscuring their gauge or by replacing their ball with a ball bomb, affecting the accuracy of their landing.
So yeah, it seems as though golf isn't exactly a breeze. Speaking of which...
There are also other things to take into account, such as wind resistance, with this arrow indicating the direction of the wind.
Aww.
For advanced players, there's also the option to curve your swing by holding X and moving the analog stick left or right while setting the precision. But personally, I don't think this is necessary by any means. I managed to win many games without using this. It just needlessly complicates it in my opinion.
Good job.
But it's there in case you want to show off, I guess.
Time for a big play.
Every precise swing you make fills the super shot gauge. Once this is full, if you press L1, you'll be able to hit the ball further with a special move. Oh, and you also want to avoid the big red X's, as these trigger booby traps.
Whoops. I really dropped the bomb on that one.
If you're having trouble aiming for a particular area, you can move the left analog stick up and down to change your club, which basically adjusts the distance you can cover.
You're in for it now.
There are also some sparkly blue areas of the environment that you can interact with. such as rabbit holes, bear traps, and teleporters.
Nice one.
And if you manage to activate these things, they can push you closer to the hole. This is cool and all, but it's impossible to know precisely how hard to hit the ball until you've attempted it at least once. And even then, there's little room for error.
You might want to get your eyes checked.
The objects you can interact with are usually placed in really awkward places, and it's often not worth the risk of landing out of bounds.
Ooh, that's no way to play this game.
Meanwhile, the CPU characters are basically programmed to aim the ball at these targets dead on. It feels painfully unfair at times, especially if you're playing in the expert difficulty mode.
But hey, if you're playing on expert mode, I guess you should expect them to be experts. That's sound logic there. What? No, he's a duck. Obviously.
If you get bored watching the other characters play, you can thankfully fast forward through their turns by holding the X button. I was actually pretty relieved when I realised this, as there were a couple of occasions when the CPU characters were just totally useless and taking up so much time.
You realize you're supposed to hit the ball toward the hole, right?
Take this hole in the Whispering Woods for example. Daffy kept repeatedly hitting the ball way too hard. What was he thinking?
Okay, that didn't work. Maybe if I hit the ball in exactly the same way with exactly the same force, I'll make it this time. Yes, that sounds like a plan. Can't see that blowing up in my face.
The challenges here are pretty, well, challenging.
Woe is me.
There are several that require you to make par at the same time as hitting all the targets.
Better step aside.
Which is harder than you'd think, especially when there are obstacles such as tornadoes throwing you off course.
Literally off course.
Oh, I just couldn't keep up.
Honestly, these target hitting challenges were the worst for me, particularly the one on the Martian Command Center course. Yep, if there's one challenge I can guarantee you'll get stuck on, it's this one.
And while we're on the subject of getting stuck,
in some challenges the terrain itself is an obstacle, such as icy ground and sticky spots, which I think is a neat little reference to the glue Wily uses to trap the Roadrunner in Ready Set Zoom. Some challenges are more straightforward, such as having to make par without changing your club,
Well, will you look at that?
or having to play with strong winds.
Losing don't feel right. Maybe I'm coming down with something.
This one took a few attempts, and even when I beat the challenge, I swear it was a fluke.
I won!
phew, won that one by a hair.
In order to unlock the Roadrunner's Canyon, the boss challenge is a 9-hole match against super genius Wile E. Coyote. Here you need to control Roadrunner, and Wily is one skilled golfer. In spite of his use of questionable Acme products to help him.
The ball drops for a birdie.
Ooh, the bird got a birdie.
I actually found Wily to be the most challenging boss to beat. Which is interesting because slow and strategic is usually my kind of game. His swings are often incredibly accurate.
That's par.
Wily by name, Wily by nature.
You did it.
Finally, we have tennis.
That's 40-15.
This is also far more interesting than I expected. The first location is Tumbleweed Gulch, deriving inspiration from the Wild West shorts, such as Drip Along Daffy and the Yosemite Sam cartoons. Playing the Ultimate Cup also unlocks the Royal Knight's Keep, where you can see a coat of arms similar to the one seen in the Oscar-winning Nighty Night Bugs, as well as the Green Dragon from the same cartoon.
Wow, these cartoon references are really nothing to sneeze at. What did I just say?
So, how do you play? You serve the ball by first pressing X, and then pressing X again to hit the ball, preferably at the right time for a perfect serve. If you want to play this game on a very basic level, you can simply press X to use a flat stroke, returning the ball with a fast hard hit.
That brings the score to 15-30.
Not only do you need to hit the ball, but in order to score, you also need to use the analog stick to aim your shot.
Nice one, eh?
At a more advanced level, there are actually several variations of strokes that enable you to play much more effectively.
Over him!
30 love.
Now, I'm no tennis pro, but I'm going to do my best to talk about these moves. Pressing square activates a slice move, making it more difficult for your opponent to return the ball with force.
One for me!
Triangle lets you perform a far-reaching lob move, and circle lets you perform a controlled topspin, causing the ball to bounce with little risk of landing out of bounds. This might sound complicated, but it's not too difficult to get used to, and it's extremely beneficial to learn these moves, the idea being to return the ball with the appropriate stroke. For example, if your opponent performs a slice, it's best to return the ball with a topspin. The problem I have with this is that it's sometimes really hard to tell what kind of stroke your opponent uses. But it's not too much of an issue. It's not like you have to return every ball perfectly to win. To make the ball fly faster, you can also charge your shot by holding the button.
That brings the score to 30-15.
And by the way, I love that they all grunt like real tennis pros. They really do make a racket.
You suck!
Over here, yes!
Now and again, Tweety will appear with a target, and if you manage to hit it, some Looney Tunes style hazards will appear on your opponent's side of the court. As you hit the ball, the super meter fills. If you hold R1, you can slow time, which makes it easier to hit the ball in time if it's out of reach.
Game!
If the meter is completely filled, you can return the ball with a super shot,
Better watch out.
allowing you to aim for a particular area of the court and hit the ball with force. You can also use this move to hit your opponents. The tennis challenges are mostly pretty straightforward. Some require you to hit the ball using only one kind of stroke, such as a flat or a topspin. And some require you to complete tasks in a time limit, such as performing a certain number of super shots. Sometimes you'll need to complete a match while avoiding hazards, and some challenges require you to keep returning the ball until the clock runs out. I'd say the hardest challenges are the ones in which you need to return the ball to an opponent a certain number of times.
Whoa! Yikes!
If you fail to hit the ball 3 times, you need to start over. When you complete all of these challenges, the boss challenge is unlocked. Here you have to play as Porky, and face the one and only Daffy Duck. In light of this, I was kind of surprised they didn't use this quote.
Anyone for tennis?
I mean, come on, what a wasted opportunity.
Yippee!
Porky seems confident, alright, but considering how hard the previous challenges were, I'm sweating like a well, pig.
Better watch out, Buster!
Daffy is indeed a formidable player, although personally I don't think it's the hardest challenge. I didn't struggle here at all. The biggest nuisance is the hazards. If Daffy hits the laser, he scores a point, which is really annoying.
Well, what do you know? I won!
Anyway, beating Daffy unlocks the final tennis court, Galactic Outpost Delta, once again based on Duck Dodgers in the 24th century. As you can tell, there is an abundance of references to the classic shorts, which I was pleased to see.
Carrots are divine, you get a dozen for a dime. It's magic. They fry, a song begins, they roast, and I hear violins. It's magic.
I'm not going to attempt to name them all as there are a lot, but just want to highlight a few.
What's this, folks? And this?
Upon winning the Ultimate Cup, Yosemite Sam's victory dance is clearly inspired by his dance in Bugs Bunny Rides Again. And if you look closely in the Seago in Sam's pirate ship basketball court, you can see a skeletal fish, which is a reference to the fish seen in Captain Hairblower. Whenever Daffy is stunned, as well as stars spinning around his head, you can see Screwball Daffy faces, referencing Duck Amuck.
You know better than that!
The golf course Roadrunner's Canyon features some obstacles inspired by the Roadrunner cartoons, including the metal blockades from Stop, Look and Hasten. And one reference that I was really surprised to see was the giant robot Wile-E from the Solid Tin Coyote. As one of the cheaply made DePatie Freeling cartoons of the 60s, it's widely regarded as one of the worst cartoons to feature the Roadrunner.
You might say that particular cartoon is a swing and a miss. And yes, I'm aware that's actually referencing baseball, but I ran out of puns, okay?
But hey, it's nice to see them acknowledge some of their more obscure cartoons. Speaking of which, the ultimate prize, the Golden Anvil, reminded me of Junkyard Run, a webtoon released in 2001, in which the winner's prize is, you guessed it,
The coveted Golden Anvil.
I think this is merely a coincidence though. Let's face it, it's not as though anvils are uncommon in Looney Tunes.
You could argue that it's a reference, but I don't think it's got much, weight to it.
Woohoo! Woohoo! I did it! I did it!
Besides a PlayStation trophy, there is no reward for winning the Ultimate Cup with every character. And since Sam is technically a bonus character exclusive to the Deluxe Edition, you don't even need to complete the cup with him to get the trophy. I think it would have been nice to receive some kind of acknowledgement for 100% completion. But hey, I'm used to this kind of thing at this point.
What a despicable outcome!
It is nice to see some familiar faces in the audience, along with quotes inspired by the cartoons.
Oh goody, some kind of activity down there. Oh goody, some kind of activity down there.
However, one odd creative choice was to have both Granny and Witch Hazel in the crowd at one time.
Did I miss any plays? My glasses are all foggy.
I've no issues with their being there in general, but their voices are basically the same and hard to distinguish.
Land sakes, what a thrilling game!
It's really hard to tell by voice alone. Well, which is the which?
It's kind of funny when it sounds like Granny is talking about eating children.
No roasted children at the concession stand?
Granny, should I be concerned?
Babbitt and Costello can be seen in the background of some of the games, which was interesting to me as they are very seldom seen. For anyone who doesn't know, these are the antagonists in Tweety's debut short, A Tale of Two Kitties from 1942.
Well, that sure takes a load off of my mind.
There's also Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog.
Morning, Ralph. Morning, Sam.
In what I think is their first appearance in a PlayStation game since the best Looney Tunes game ever made, Sheepdog and Wolf. There's also Beaky Buzzard, Nasty Canasta, and Charlie Dog, surprisingly. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's ever made an appearance in a game before.
I don't know.
Either way, it's nice to see him. Although it's kind of funny when playing the Martian Command Center golf course, as the audience is 99% Martian, and then Charlie Dog is just there. Like, okay, feels a little out of place, but alright. Oh, and of course there's Gossamer.
People!
Guess the big red brute wanted to be included, yet again.
Evidently, he's not just a hideous creature, he's a creature of habit.
The multiplayer is also a lot of fun. You can play this game with up to 4 people, and most of the sports look the same as in single player mode. The only major difference being that tennis is split screen, which makes sense. I really think this makes for a fun party game. It's kind of a shame that there's no online multiplayer, and as such I understand if some players might consider it to be a little outdated.
Triple bogey.
Not there!
It's not exactly in tune with the times, so to speak.
But for someone who's used to the old-fashioned PS1 and PS2 games, this isn't a major disappointment. The CPU characters are fairly adept for the most part, and offer a decent challenge.
Well, wasn't that fun?
I think it would have been a nice touch if all of the playable characters had their own unique rewards for completing the cup, as was the case with Looney Tunes Racing. I mean, come on, what would Roadrunner want with a Golden Anvil? Realistically, he'd only play for Birdseed. But in spite of this, it's nonetheless clear that the developers invested a great deal of effort here. There are moments during the game when characters will directly taunt one another.
Guess you were firing blanks, eh, Sam?
And not only that, but when the various characters take to the podium at the very end, they all have different dialogue for their different positions, which is pretty admirable.
That place? Why, you... Hey!
Speaking of which, it's time for the final scores. Is this game a slam dunk? Will it win by a whisker? Or is it downright dethpicable?
Yes, so that's what winning feels like.
Trust me, I'm probably as surprised as you are that I like this game so much, but honestly, I'm impressed. There is some stuff they could have done better. I still think soccer is a little convoluted and awkward.
What a cat!
But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad.
Fabuloso!
As usual, besides trophies, a reward for 100% completion would be nice. But on the whole, this is a really fun game. I would seriously advise you to ignore the low-scoring critic reviews. No, the game isn't perfect, but it's far from horrendous. It might take a while to get to grips with all the controls and rules, but once you do, it's surprisingly entertaining.
Game, set, and match!
They could have been really lazy with this release, but it has a great deal of character to it. I would recommend getting the deluxe version, although be warned that the only thing that makes this version deluxe is the addition of Yosemite Sound. It is absolutely ridiculous to have to purchase the entire game again just for one extra character, and as good as the game is, the price it's going for on the PlayStation Store currently is pretty steep. As much as I want to encourage people to buy this, my advice is to wait until the deluxe version is on sale.
This will be a big... ducky for dessert.
All in all, this is a fun party game for everyone, but if you're a Looney Tunes fan, this is ace.
It's tied up at 15 all.
It's no masterpiece, but definitely on par with the older games.
That's a goal!
He shoots, he scores!
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed. A big thank you to Shanie for helping me record the multiplayer parts of the game. As I was editing this video, I noted that Lola Bunny says this.
Can you believe when I came here today, I expected to be in a movie?
And it made me wonder if it's a reference to Lola's voice actor Kath Soucie being replaced by Zendaya in the Space Jam sequel. I don't know, I might be overthinking it. It just seems like an odd thing to say, unless it's actually derived from some Looney Tunes media I'm not aware of. Speaking of which, now seems like a good time to resurrect this discussion. Almost a whole year has passed since the Louvre video, and I still have no idea what this image is from. If anyone knows, drop me a message. I'm determined to find out. I've even tried contacting somebody who worked on a back-in-action game, to no avail. It's honestly a complete mystery to me. Anyway, as usual, a huge thank you to my patrons, Anthony Gallagher, 3Spooky5Me, Voligo72, and Matthew Shaw. Thanks also to my free patrons, Yukonai Yuko, Elma, Kira Flameheart, Dee's Nuts, Heather McKnight, Hannah Kingdon, Michael Shields, Dennis, GamerKid96, and Mood Faik. And an extra special thanks to my channel members, 3Spooky5Me, Reunion, and Davies Kennedy. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye for now.
So long, goodbye, have a nice trip. Don't forget to write once in a while.